3.41. Okay. And then what are we going to do about the broadcast on Facebook? Are we getting that or no?
Yes, Mataji.
Live, yeah.
Are we live, alive and well, kicking?
Yeah.
All right. Yes, we are. Okay. So
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Dandavat
Hare
Pranam.
Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Okay. So then let us get going. There's nothing for us to wait for. We are broadcasting and we are alive here. And so Chitra Mataji also welcome to the call. And so let me start sharing my screen with you here without much ado. Here we are. And Bhagavad-gita chapter number 3. And the Bhagavad-gita is the manual for your life. Do you agree?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, yeah. So it's a very important thing to keep in mind that it's a manual for life. So it is not a book. Sometimes people don't read the book. They form impressions about the book. And they might say, like, we don't want to read the Bhagavad-gita because it's a Hindu thing, meaning as the Hindu religion. And so why don't you read the Bhagavad-gita? Oh, all that you have in the Bhagavad-gita is how to take a lamp and a bell and to ring it. Obviously, they have not read the Bhagavad-gita because nowhere in the Bhagavad-gita does he talk about using a lamp or the bell, right? So Bhagavad-gita is a book that can be read by anybody in this world. And we are in the midst of Srila Prabhupada Marathon, where we are planning to distribute 2.2 million books all over the world, and the marathon ends tomorrow. And so, yes, this is the manual for life, which means that, this is the book which will tell you how to lead life, and it will tell that to anybody and everybody for all the various segments or sections of society. Chaturvarnyam Maya system, Krishna says there are 4, right? And that is why you'll find that people well-educated and the scientists, the philosophers from all over the world read the Bhagavad Gita. Because he's saying that the real problems and the real way to live life is over here. If you are stressed out in life, you can go to a stress workshop. You can go to a doctor who's going to give you some medications to perk you up. And I remember we had a neighbor. It was a joint family. It's a very loving joint family, very attached to each other. And so they had their uncle, like the father's elder brother. And he was getting old. And with old age comes depression, obviously, because the enjoyment is going. And so he was depressed, and the rest of the family was like, no, he should not be depressed. Why is uncle depressed? So they kept on going to the doctor and saying, do something about it. And the doctor tried to explain it to them, but they would not understand. So then the doctor said, okay, I'm going to give him some medicines to perk him up a little bit. And so he had those medicines, and he got so perked up that he took the knife from the kitchen and he started running after all the family members. So, well, how you solve the problem of life. So, or, you can go to a psychiatrist couch and you can stay there and try to solve the problem of life there, right? But the real way in which, first and foremost, is to understand what are the real problems of life. Right? So we think that this is a problem, that is a problem. The real problem are 4. There's birth and death, there is old age and disease. That's the only problem in life. All other are secondary problems. So, and to get over that problem, no psychiatrist's couch, or no stress workshops, or no medication is going to help you. It's only when you read and go deeper into the philosophy and understand what is the truth. Right? When you understand you're a soul, not a body, 75% of the problems are going to go away just by that knowledge that you get. Right? So Bhagavad Gita is the manual. That's why the wise from any part of the world will read it. So the Prabhupada in the back of his book has put down the name, right? Thoreau, Emerson, Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Tupac Shakur, just to name a few, right? Who read the Bhagavad Gita like that. They're smart people, and so are you. On a Saturday evening, you have come here to talk about Krishna and to go deeper into the Bhagavad Gita. And Archana Mataji, so happy to see you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Okay.
Hare Krishna to everyone.
Yeah, and Hare Krishna, my screen is not showing everybody. I also see that Simi Mataji is here. And so is Garima Mataji. Wow, Garima Mataji, fantastic. Okay, and Chitra, Simi, Meera, Sadhana, fantastic, fantastic. Okay, Vindyavali, Sukumal Radhe, Sutapa, Archana, Varshana, very good.
Hare
11
Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, then
11 of us
Sadhana.
today.
Yes, and Sadhana. That's good. We have a cricket team. Good. We are ready to play the game of life. All right, so let's go to chapter number 3. Oh, I might have chapter number 2 open here. Maybe I need to show something to you from chapter 2. So what's going on in chapter 3 for the last few weeks, if I may ask you that? What's happening? Anybody wants to summarize for 500 points?
But last time we were talking about lust.
Lust. Okay, well, we'll give it to you. You start with 500 points. Yeah. So for the past so many verses, Krishna has been talking about lust. Why did he ask about why he's talking about lust? Did Arjuna ask something?
Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Sorry, Archana, please go ahead.
No, Mataji, you can carry on. No worries. Please go ahead.
Mataji, you just said that mind is mind, intelligence, and senses are the sitting place of love.
Okay.
Lust is the sitting place of mind. So, yeah, the senses.
Okay. Let's hear from Archana.
Mind.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji. Arjuna, he asked Lord Shri Krishna, like, by what, what impels a man to do sinful activities? So then Krishna tells, okay, it is the lust that causes, we human beings to perform so many sinful activities in our life. So if we can, overcome lust, then we can overcome anything, actually.
You can overcome everything else. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So it started with him by this question that, what is it? And then Krishna says that is lust only, Arjuna. And then what does the lust do?
Anger.
It covers your real knowledge.
It covers your real knowledge, right? It covers your real knowledge. That's very, very important thing to understand, right? And so, and how does it cover? And that's where Varshana Mataji's answer comes into picture. Where does it cover? What does lust cover?
It covers the intelligence, Mataji, the mind, and senses.
And the senses, right? The 3 sitting places of lust, right? And he had also talked about, he's also talked about the degree to which it covers it. What examples did he give for the degree?
The mirror and the embryo.
Just 2? One more.
And fire. Fire
is covered by what?
It's smoke.
Right? Very good. And we had also talked about to understand the degrees and how the degree by which something is covered hampers you from doing what you're supposed to do. And that was, he gave the example of gloves, right? So you do work with your hands. And if I have to prevent somebody from doing work, there's various ways I can prevent, right? I can cut their hands off if I'm bad. I can tie their hands together so that they can't work, but I can cover their hands to a certain extent and they won't be able to do much, right? So if you have got surgical gloves on your hands, how much is it covered?
Covers only hands.
Yeah, to what degree? What degree?
You can still perform all activities using gloves.
All activities? So then where is the covering? What is it that you can't perform if you have surgical gloves on your hands?
Sense of touch. I mean, when you touch something, you cannot get that actual feeling. When you wear like gloves, you won't feel the same feeling,
Sense of touch.
You lose a little bit of the sense of touch. Yeah, go ahead, Sutapa. You were trying to say something?
Yes, no, it is more or less like with Chitra Mataji, because if it is the surface is hot, so you cannot feel that degree, means how hot it is, or if it is cold. So it's kind of touch.
It's kind of touch, right? Okay. Yeah. And you don't lose all of it, because if the surgeon loses the sense of touch and the sense of hot and cold, it's not going to be good. But to a certain extent, yes, because there's a layer over there. Like, and some of the finer aspects of that, like if you give a fine needle and a thread, might not be able to hold fine things with that. Also, the nail effect, you can't scratch as much, that feeling is not there, but it is a little, the covering is very little. Okay. Then we gave the example of a cricketer's glove. Right? A cricketer is having gloves. What can he do? Can he thread a needle? Can he use a spoon and eat?
No.
So you see how the degree of covering is increasing a little bit, right? And the last example that we took was the boxer's glove. So what happens in the boxer's glove? The fingers themselves are gone, right? It's complete covering. So you see that is the extent to which lust covers the body. And what were the three species to which these degrees were equated?
Mataji, we are talking here that Matanga, that one?
No, species.
Oh,
Like
trees.
Yes.
The trees,
Mhm.
animals, and then humans.
And humans, very good, right? So humans are like, which one? Which example of covering?
A surgical glove. Yeah.
A surgical glove, which
Or
in
the
the
smoke and fire.
smoke and fire, exactly. And then the next one?
Animals are like the mirror and the dust.
Mirror and the dust, yeah.
And the trees are like the embryo.
Embryo, right? So in the mirror and the dust, the main thing. So in the first case, what was happening was that the fire is covered by smoke, but still you're able to do certain things, right? So your hands are covered by gloves, but you're still able to do things with your hands. You can count, like a pinch, like that you can do, right? Little covering is there. But here, when the mirror is covered by dust, it stops to act like a mirror. So a soul will stop to do what it is supposed to, will not be able to do what it's supposed to do, which is devotional service to the Lord. So in the animal body, you're not able to do that. Right? And then what happens in the third one? What species of life is that?
Trees.
Trees, right? And that was equated to?
Embryo.
Embryo, right? Embryo, the covered by?
Womb.
By the?
Womb.
Womb, right? Yeah. Embryo is covered by the womb, right? So there, that is equated more to a state of helplessness. The child just cannot do anything, hanging upside down. Whatever the mother eats, he gets. Mother doesn't eat, does not get. Like that, right? And you have to wait. You have to wait for the child to come out of the womb. So that patience is required over there when the child is in the womb. And of course, it's not able to do, to a certain extent, what it is supposed to do. And it has to, whatever womb it goes in, then it'll get the characteristics of the mother there, be born like that. So that is the third place. So you just have to wait patiently for it to come out, and then it can act. Otherwise, there's complete helplessness. In as much as a tree is standing there, right? So trees stand there. I remember when I was young, we used to walk to the school, right? If you take a rickshaw, you walk to the school. So we used to walk to the school. And so there was a lane and the people's houses were on each of the sides, and you have your bag and you're going there. So what will a child do, right? Idle mind. So you pick the leaves. People have got hedges around their houses. And so you start picking the leaves and nothing like that. Have nothing to do. You pick a leaf over there, throw it, go there, throw it. And I remember our teachers used to scold us for doing that. That, you should not pluck the trees. And now later on, I understand that, they are living entities. And you are just plucking them and hurting them. I mean, of course, they don't feel it to that extent, but at least the plucking is there. And the damage is there. And the people can come to a tree, I mean, you know what dogs do up a tree. Can't protest, right? A person can come and hack your branches off, cannot protest. People can come and pluck your fruits away, cannot protest and say, hey, these are my mangoes. No, complete helplessness is there, right? So that's the third layer of covering that they do, like that. Okay, so then going along with our tradition of reading something from the Srimad Bhagavatam, we're going to read a little story. And this story is about Prithu Maharaj. So Prithu Maharaj is supposed to be a Saktya Vesh avatar, or an empowered incarnation of Lord Krishna. And he came here and he's supposed to be a very powerful king. And some other day I'll talk about that, how He didn't like the fact that there is sun and the rain, and there is day and the night. And he was very effulgent himself. He was as effulgent as the sun. So he tried to circumambulate this universe in the opposite side of the sun, so that there was always sun on both the sides and things like that. So he used to do many fantastic things. And so Prithu Maharaj, and so in this case, what Prithu Maharaj is doing is that he wanted to do Ashwamedh Yagyas, and he had done 99 Ashwamedh Yagyas. Now, when you do 100 Ashwamedh Yagyas, what happens? Anybody know or remember?
Yeah, you will be equal to Indra Mataji, right?
You will become Indra. Yeah, you'll become Indra, right? So let's read about these Prithu Maharaj's 100 horse sacrifices. So the great sage Maitreya is telling the story to Vidura. My King Prithu initiated the performance of 100 horse sacrifices at the spot where the river Saraswati flows towards the east. This piece of land is known as Brahmavarta, and it was controlled by Swambhuva Manu. When the most powerful Indra, the son of heaven, saw this, he considered the fact that King Prithu was going to exceed him in fruitive activities. Thus, Indra could not tolerate the great sacrificial ceremonies performed by King Prithu. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, is present in everyone's heart as the Super Soul, and he is the proprietor of all the planets and enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices. He was personally present at the sacrifices made by King Prithu. When Lord Vishnu appeared in the sacrificial arena, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and all the chief predominating personalities of every planet, as well as their followers, came to meet him. When he appeared on the scene, the residents of Gandharva Loka, the great sages, and the residents of Apsara Loka all praised him. The Lord was accompanied by the residents of Siddhaloka and Vidyadhar Loka, all the descendants of Diti. And last time, remember, we said Diti and Aditi. So we said both are wives of whose wife are they? Last time we talked about this. Diti and Aditi are the wives.
Hiranyakashipu.
No, they are both the wives of Kashyap Muni.
Okay.
Yeah, Hiranyakashipu is the son of Diti. Okay, so Diti, from the Diti, all the Asuras come, and from Aditi, all the Suras come. Okay, Devtas and Danavas, like that. So all the descendants of Diti, which means and the demons and the Yakshas, they also came. He was also accompanied by his chief associates, headed by Sunanda and Nanda. Great devotees who are always engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as well as the great sages named Kapila, Narada, and Dattatreya, and masters of mystic powers headed by Sanak Kumar, all attended the great sacrifice with Lord Vishnu. So Prithu Maharaj is doing the sacrifice, and all these great personalities are here. My dear Vidura, in that great sacrifice, the entire land came to be like the milk-producing Kamdhenu, and thus by the performance of Yajna, all the daily necessities for life were supplied. This is very, very important to note that, by the performance of Yajna, all daily necessities of life are supplied. And we forget to do that. The most important Yajna, which is devotional service of the Lord, that's the Yajna we forget. And we try to find other means of getting hold of the necessities of life. And we don't have to do that. Like that. So the flowing river supplied all kinds of tastes, sweet, pungent, sour, etc. And very big trees supplied fruit and honey in abundance. The cows, having eaten sufficient green grass, supplied profuse quantities of milk, curd, clarified butter, and similar other necessities. And this is very, very interesting that we have yet to develop a machine, like science has yet to develop a machine where you put grass from one side and you get milk from the other side. We have yet to come to that stage. So King Prithu was presented with various gifts from the general populace and predominating deities of all the planets. You can imagine how powerful he was, that other planets, the deities of those planets are also coming, which will mean Shukras, all the planets, the planetary systems that are there. The ocean and seas were full of valuable jewels and pearls, and the hills were full of chemicals and fertilizers. 4 kinds of edibles were produced profusely. 4 kinds of edibles, we talked about that also last time. What were the 4 kinds?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Which can be eaten, can be sucked, can be chewed. One more.
And drink.
And drunk. Yes, drink.
So King Prithu was dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Adhokshaja. And we remember we were talking about Adhokshaja means that one who cannot be perceived by the senses, right? And he's indescribable. So is the letter of in our Sanskrit Varnmala, right? Sanskrit alphabet, it starts with and then sh, tri, gya. So that one, right? So in that line, all the way from A up to ksha, you can use any of the letters and combine them in any possible way. You will not be able to describe him fully, right? Adhokshaja also means that. Of course, Adhokshaja also means that you can't understand him or perceive him through your senses. So because King Prithu performed so many sacrifices, he was superhumanly enhanced by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. King Prithu's opulence, however, could not be tolerated by the king of heaven, Indra, who tried to impede the progress of his opulence. So you see how immediately everything happened. King Indra has a desire, the lusty desire, to continue to be Indra forever. And as soon as he sees somebody else is trying to be there, he cannot tolerate it. Right? So that's the story for most of us. When Prithu Maharaj was performing the last horse sacrifice, Ashwamedha Yagya, King Indra, invisible to everyone, stole the horse intended for sacrifice. He did this because of his great envy of King Prithu. So I want you to focus on the word invisible here, right? He's invisible. When King Indra was taking away the horse, he dressed himself to appear as a liberated person. Actually, this dress was a form of cheating, for it falsely created an impression of religion. When Indra went into outer space in this way, the great sage Atri saw him and understood the whole situation. When the son of King Prithu was informed by Atri of King Indra's trick, he immediately became very angry and followed King Indra to kill him, calling, "Wait, wait." King Indra was fraudulently dressed as a sannyasi, having knotted his hair on his head and smeared ashes all over his body. Upon seeing such dress, the son of King Prithu considered Indra a religious man and pious sannyasi. Therefore, he did not release his arrows. When Atri Muni saw that the son of King Prithu did not kill Indra, but returned deceived by him, Atri Muni again instructed him to kill the heavenly king, because he thought that Indra had become the lowliest of all demigods due to his impeding the execution of King Prithu's sacrifice. Being thus informed, the grandson of King Vena, which is Prithu, immediately began to follow Indra, who was fleeing through the sky in great haste. He was very angry with him, and he chastised him just as the king of vultures chased Ravana. Now that's another story for another day. We'll talk about why did they do that, Garuda. When Indra saw that the son of Prithu was chasing him, he immediately abandoned his false dress and left the horse. Indeed, he disappeared from the very spot. So earlier we had talked about invisible, right? Now he has disappeared. So again, he has become invisible. And the great hero, the son of Maharaj Prithu, returned the horse to his father's sacrificial arena. My dear Vidura, when the great sages observed the wonderful prowess of the son of King Prithu, they all agreed to give him the name Vijitsava. My dear Vidura, Indra, being the king of heaven, was very powerful, immediately brought a dense darkness upon the sacrificial arena. So what happens when a dense darkness is going to come upon the sacrificial arena? What happens to the visibility?
It's gone.
Can't see anything.
Gone, right? Covering. What is the word we have been using all these weeks, past 3-4 weeks, about covering?
Yeah.
Covering everything.
Like you say, fire is covered by the smoke.
Sanskrit. Give me the Sanskrit.
Mm.
Go look it up.
Avrata.
Avritam, exactly right, for 500 points, right? So covering, so see, Avritam has also come here. The whole scene in this way, he again took away the horse. So, that when there is darkness and when you're not able to see, then others can take away things. Took away the horse, which was chained with golden shackles near the wooden instrument where animals were sacrificed. The great sage again pointed out to the son of King Prithu that Indra was fleeing through the sky. The great hero, the son of Prithu, chased him again. But when he saw that Indra was carrying in his hand a staff with a skull at the top and was again wearing the dress of a sannyasi, he still chose not to kill him. When the great sage Atri again gave directions, the king of Prithu became very angry. The son of King Prithu became very angry and placed an arrow on his bow. Upon seeing this, King Indra immediately abandoned the false dress of a sannyasi and, giving up the horse, made himself invisible. Then the great hero Vijitsva, the son of King Prithu, again took the horse and returned to his father's sacrificial arena. Since that time, certain men with a poor fund of knowledge have adopted the dress of a sannyasi. And they say that he is the one, just that way, King Indra is the founder Acharya, just as Srila Prabhupada is the founder Acharya of ISKCON. Indra is the founder Acharya of this Apsampradaya, of the bogus gurus, where people impersonate. Then the great hero Vijayasabala again took the horse and returned to his father's sacrificial arena. Since that time, certain men with a poor fund of knowledge has adopted the dress of a sannyasi. It was King Indra who introduced this. Whatever different forms Indra assumed as a mendicant because of his desire, lust to seize the horse were symbols of atheistic philosophy. In this way, King Indra, in order to steal the horse from King Prithu's sacrifice, adopted several orders of sannyas. Some sannyasis go naked and sometimes they wear red garments and pass under the name of Kapalika. These are simply symbolic representations of their sinful activities. These so-called sannyasis are very much appreciated by sinful men because they're all godless atheists and very expert in putting forward arguments and reasons to support their cause. We must know, however, that they are only passing as adherents of religion and are not so in fact. Unfortunately, bewildered persons accept them as religious, and being attracted to them, they spoil their life. Maharaj Prithu, who was celebrated as very powerful, immediately took up his bow and arrows and prepared to kill Indra himself because Indra had introduced such irregular sannyasa orders. When the priest and all the others saw Maharaj Prithu very angry and prepared to kill Indra, they requested him, "Oh great soul, do not kill him. For only sacrificial animals can be killed in a sacrifice." Such other directions given by the Shastras. Dear King Indra's powers are already reduced. Very important. King Indra's powers are already reduced due to his attempt to impede the execution of your sacrifice. And we have to understand that our powers and our capabilities of doing certain things get reduced if we indulge in sinful activities like this, impeding the execution of a sacrifice. So we can call him by Vedic mantras, which were never before used, and certainly he will come. Thus, by the power of mantra, we shall cast him into the fire because he is your enemy. Right? So don't kill him that way, but we'll do it in a different way. My dear Vidura, after giving king this advice, the priest who had been engaged in performing the sacrifice called for Indra, the king of heaven, in a mood of great anger. When they were just ready to put the oblation in the fire, Lord Brahma appeared on the scene and forbade them to start the sacrifice. Lord Brahma addressed them thus: "My dear sacrificial performers, you cannot kill Indra, the king of heaven. It is not your duty. You should know that Indra is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he's a devotee. Indeed, he's one of the most powerful assistants of the Personality of Godhead. You're trying to satisfy all the demigods by the performance of this yajna, but you should know that all these demigods are but parts and parcels of Indra, the king of heaven. How then can you kill him in this great sacrifice?" Right? So I just wanted to give you this background before we go into our verse for today, which is verse number 41, where we are talking about coverings, right? And invisible and things like that. So 41. So as Bharshana Mataji has pointed out, she said the senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Where does lust sit, right? Where do you live? Where's your zip code? Tell me. I want to find out, right? Because if you see in the case of Prithu Maharaj's son, right, Vijitswa, he has to find where the enemy is. And the enemy is doing this disappearing act. So I want to know the location. Well, 3 places: senses, mind, and the intelligence. So he's saying, God tells him that, and then Krishna is saying, therefore, and let's see the therefore. Tasmat tvam indriyana dao niyamya bharata rishabha papamanam prajahyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. Tasmat tvam indriyana dao niyamya bharata rishabha papamanam prajahyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. Tasmat tvam indriyana deo niyamya bharata rishabha papamanam prajahyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. So tasmat means therefore. Tvam, you, indriyani, senses, adav, in the beginning, niyamya, by regulating, bharata rishabha, O great descendants, O great chief among the descendants of Bharata, papamanam, the great symbol of sin, prajahi, karp, he, certainly, enam, this, jnana, of knowledge, vijnana, scientific knowledge of the pure soul, nashanam, is destroyer. Okay, so what is the Sanskrit for beginning?
Adav.
Adav, right? Okay, and who's the destroyer?
Nashanam.
Nashanam. And what are the senses?
Indriyani.
Indriyani.
And now, have you heard of people? Have you heard of people called Indriyani?
Yeah.
So now you know what the name is, what the name means. We have to be very careful about choosing the name. These days, well, earlier the names used to be names of God, right? So that when you call out to your
Mataji, there is
children,
another name, Indrani too.
yes. So people don't think too much and they just give a name. Nowadays, I have sometimes even asked the parents, like, what is your child's name mean? And they were like, we don't know. It just sounded right, so we just gave the name like that. So that's where we're headed. This is when your intelligence is covered. Your desire is only to have a cute sounding name. You don't even bother about what it is. I mean, naming your kids with as the name of the Lord, if you just have to read the story of Ajamila. He had a son named Narayan. At the time of his death, he called out to Narayan, right? Yeah. And that's a very nice story in the 6th canto of Bhagavatam. We'll cover that in some extent. Okay. So then we have got Bharata Rishabha, O chief among the descendants of Bharata, right? He is described here as Bharata Rishabha. Okay. Now, Rishabh. Okay. What does Rishabh mean?
Descendant.
Well, we are thinking, Bharata Rishabha. So descendant doesn't mean Rishabha. That is coming from Bharata.
Chief, Mataji.
Chief. Chief.
Yeah, see, he has, yes, that is right. That is right. I'll give that to you because I don't think we have entered that stage. But there's another meaning of the word Rishabha, and I'm going to bring a verse here from the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm just looking for it. 31. Yeah, let me bring it up here. 10th canto of the Bhagavatam and chapter number 31. Does anybody remember what that is? 10th canto, chapter 31. Come on. I'll give you a hint. Kartik month. 10th canto.
Damodar Leela?
Damodar Leela.
Okay, well, good guess.
Gopi
But not
Geet.
that. Gopi Geet, exactly. There you go. 10th canto means Krishna's first name, right? Okay, Gopi's Geet. So, let's see. Okay. Right here. Vishajalapyayad Gyalarakshasad Varshamarutat Vedyutanalat Vishamayatmajat Vishvato Bhayat Vishabhute Vayam Rakshita Muhar. Now, where is the word we are looking for? Which line is it?
Last.
Fourth
Fourth
line.
line.
Fourth line.
Fourth line, Rishabh, right? And what does Rishabh mean here? Let's look.
Oh, greatest of personalities.
Protected.
Great of personalities.
Right? So greater personality. Now there's another meaning of the word Rishabh. Right?
Raksha.
Rishabh.
From all.
No. Rishabh also means the bull. The bull.
Bull.
Right?
Rishabh.
Yeah. Well, Rishabh, right? Rishabh Rashi. The bull. Taurus. Varshana. You. Taurus. Taurus. Okay. Rishabh. So he's saying, he's using the word Bharat Rishabh, right? So Bharat Rishabh is being used as the best among the Bharatas, right? Best among the Kuru dynasty or the Bharatas or descendants of King Bharat, right? But here, we have to also think about the bull part of it, right? So a bull, or even, Rishabh is also used for ox also, right? The ox and bull, they kind of use it synonymously. Anyway, both of them. So the ox that you have in your, well, not you, but in the villages that we have, it does a lot of work, right? What does the ox do?
Carries the carts.
Right. It is used to plow, right? And it's used to pull the cart, right? It does a lot of work. And what do you give them to eat?
Grass.
Grass.
right? So for little amount of things that you give to him, I mean, here, you write like 6 lines of deadly software code and you want $200,000 for that. Right, like that, right? But then here, for a small amount of grass that you give, the bull does a lot of work, right? So similarly, he's saying that our Arjuna is very famous, right? He's the go-getter, the doer in that dynasty. So he's saying Bharata Rishabha. Among all of those, it's not that others did not do. It's not that other brothers were just lazy, but he was kind of like the best, right? We know among all the Pandavas, Krishna also says in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, he's saying that among the Pandavas, I am Arjuna. So while he's describing his opulences and he's giving the best of everything. So he's saying that, he's the best. So Bharat Rishabha, so he's addressing him as that, right? That you are the one who do everything. The best. Bull does everything, you are the one who do. Remember, this chapter is about Karma Yoga. Karma means?
Work.
Work, right? Okay, right? And was Arjuna wanting to work? Chapter 1, last chapter,
No.
last verse, what did he do?
No.
Okay, chapter 1, last verse, what does he do?
Surrendering.
He puts his bow and arrow down and he says, I
Down.
will not fight.
Yeah. Okay, now here's very interesting now. These are the finer aspects of Bhagavad Gita. And as you dig deeper, in the first chapter, first verse, let us see that does he say, I will not fight? Let's see, does he say that? So let's look at chapter 1 and last verse, maybe 46 or 47, I think. And let's see. 46, Sanjay said, Arjun, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrow and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief, right? So he's so overwhelmed, he's not saying anything. Now let's look at the next verse, right? Now he's kind of saying that, he's full of compassion, his mind. Then Krishna says that, Kutashvakas malamidam, from where has all these dirtiness came? And, Klabyam masma karapata, don't be an impotent like that, right? And then he again says that, how can I counteract with my people? He's seen my Bhishma and my Drona, how can I do that? They are tainted. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. I cannot do that, right? They are now standing before us. I'm confused. I cannot do anything, right? Right. And now in the second chapter, 9th verse is where he's saying, Sanjay said, having spoken thus, Arjuna chastised of great enemies told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. So it took him to the second chapter, verse number 9, where he's saying that, Na yotsya iti. Na yotsya means I will not fight. Na yotsya iti Govinda. Tushnim. Tushnim is a very important thing. What does tushnim mean? Let's see.
Silent.
Silent, right? And who was the one talking in chapter 1?
Arjuna was talking.
Arjuna was talking, right? And now Arjuna is silent.
He was silent. He was
Silent, right? And it is very important for the student to become silent, to be able to hear what the teacher is saying, right? And so this is what it is pointing out. After talking for one full chapter, then we see here from the questions that Arjuna is asking that what a fantastic listener he is, right? Listening properly to what the teacher is saying, right? Like that. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out that, Bharata Rishabha, he's addressing him, has got a deeper meaning also there. It's not just the chief among the best of the dependent, but why is he the chief? Because he's the best of the workers also. Papamanam, the great symbol of sin, prajahi, to kar, ho satni enam, jnana, vijnana, nashnam. Now let's listen to the translation from Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin or lust by regulating the senses and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. And what was the Sanskrit for beginning?
Adav.
Adho.
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 Shraddha.
Adho. And Adho Shraddha. Very nice, right? Very nice. In the beginning, there is Shraddha. Adho Shraddha. Right? And then here also, Adho beginning. Adikal in the beginning, right? Like that they say. So therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharats, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust by regulating the senses and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. The Lord advised Arjuna to regulate the senses from the very beginning so that they could curb the greatest sinful enemy, lust, which destroys the urge for self-realization and specific knowledge of the self. Jnana refers to knowledge of self as distinguished from the non-self, or in other words, knowledge that the spirit soul is not the body. Vijnana refers to scientific knowledge of the spirit soul's constitutional position and his relationship to the Supreme Soul. It is explained thus in Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 9th chapter. Jnanam param guhyam me yad vijnana samanvitam sarahasyam tadangam cha grahana gaditam maya. The knowledge of the self and Supreme Self, Atma and Paramatma, is very confidential and mysterious. But such knowledge and specific realization can be understood if explained with their various aspects by the Lord himself. Bhagavad-gita gives us that general and specific knowledge of the self. The living entities are part and parcels of the Lord, and therefore they are simply meant to serve the Lord. This consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. So from the very beginning of life, one has to learn this Krishna consciousness, and thereby one may become fully Krishna conscious and act accordingly. The lust is only the perverted reflection of the love of God, which is natural for every living entity. Look at that. Look at that. It's a perverted reflection. But if one is educated in Krishna consciousness, from the very beginning, that natural love of God cannot deteriorate into lust. When love of God deteriorates into lust, it's very difficult to return to the normal condition. Nonetheless, Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even a late beginner, now there is hope for all of us, even a late beginner can become a lover of God by following the regulative principles of devotional service. So from any stage of life or from the time of understanding its urgency, one can begin regulating the senses in Krishna consciousness, devotional service of the Lord, and turn the lust into love of Godhead, the highest perfection stage of human life. That's it. Okay, so thoughts, reflections, comments. Anything that comes to your mind? Anything you heard?
Hare Krishna, Hare.
Hare Krishna.
When Indra did such kind of actions, shouldn't he be taken away his status?
Very good question. And why do you think it didn't happen? And of all the people, Brahma comes and tells the others that don't do it.
But then even the other time when he does the Govardhan Hill and pours rain and everything, and it shows that he's so angry, even that time Krishna doesn't do anything. Because then you keep saying that he's a great devotee of the Lord, he's a great devotee. Then why does he have all this envy?
Very good question.
Anger?
Very good question. Right? So, and throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, I have yet to find one place where Indra actually does anything nice. He doesn't do anything nice. And then later on in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, when Narad Muni is going from one place to another place and asking, like, who is the best devotee of the Lord? And he reaches the devotees and they are like true devotees. They are saying, like, I'm not a good devotee. He's a good devotee. So he goes from one place to, Prahlad, to Indra, to Shiva, and so on and so forth. He goes all over the places. And so he reaches Indra. He reaches Indra and he says that when Narad reaches Indra and he says that you're a great devotee of the Lord, and and he had just finished doing the worship of the Lord. He worships his younger brother Vamana, and so Indra, instead of being grateful to the fact that, remember, he had lost everything when he had disobeyed his spiritual master Brihaspati, and he had displayed his spiritual master Brihaspati, and he had lost all his kingdom, everything, right? Bali Maharaj was ruling it. And then he goes and, then Vamana is born, Aditi prays, so Kashyap's, and she wants a, God to come to his life so that he can kill and put his son back into the throne, put her son back into the throne. And Vamana is born, and then Vamana goes and begs Bali Maharaj for 3 steps of land, and we know the rest is history. We know that story, right? So all this happened, and then Indra got his opulence back, and he sits on the throne again, right? And so, at Indra's level, there should be gratitude, right? But instead of gratitude, in the Bhagavad-gita we hear, he says that, look at him. I lost my opulence, I know. And what had happened, and this again, what had happened to Indra ties very nicely to this chapter that we are discussing. What were the 3 places where the lust is sitting? It sits in the eyes. It sits in, the mind. It sits in the intelligence. So Indra was sitting in his court, and all the people were glorifying him, and there was dancing and all that happening. And so eyes are there. And then he sees his teacher coming, right, for a split minute, right? Sees and then looks away. And that's it. The teacher gets annoyed and leaves, right? So eyes, indriya, senses did not control, right? And so anyway, so instead of being grateful, he just says that, so look at him. He's so opulent, he's so powerful. And so and he's my brother. I asked him to get the kingdom back. He could have done it in any way, but he goes and begs it. So what happens to my pride and my name and my fame? Now you are ruling something that your younger brother begged from somebody else. What kind of a king are you? So, so there's so many ways of looking at it. And to come back to the question and the reflection that you two made is that, how Indra is always, how Lord Krishna is always protecting Indra, right? And on the face of it, it looks like Indra is so bad, right? He does this and he does that, right? Indra is actually doing a role. He's a devotee of the Lord, but he plays the role to show you what is not to be done.
Just like Bhishma.
Yes, what is not to be done. Too much attachment to the kingdom, in both the cases, right? So, and also it brings out a very interesting thing that there are 10 topics discovered in the Bhagavatam. Yatra sarga visarga sa sthanam poshanam. So poshanam means to protect. And here, poshanam is to protect the devotees. Krishna will protect his devotees. So Indra would have been killed, right? They were ready to kill Indra. And then Krishna sends Brahma, and Brahma comes and stops that sacrifice and stops him from killing. And then Brahma says something very nice, very interesting. And this Bhagavatam is so interesting and so instructional and educational in this story, particularly of Prithu Maharaj. So Prithu Maharaj was aiming for what? 100. And he was at 99. And as he was trying to go to that 100, which, by the way, if you had noticed when I was reading, it said that the priest told Prithu Maharaj, that who was ready to kill Indra, that if you kill him, that's not the thing that you do in sacrifices which are meant for fruitive activities. So Prithu Maharaj was doing fruitive activities there, right? He was looking for some results to come for his own kingdom. That's fine. He was not doing it in devotional service. So for some fruitive activities, you are doing this, but if you do this, then the results will not be nice. So they stop him, right, from doing it. And so then Brahma explains to Prithu Maharaj, and he says that, see what is happening. You're doing this fruitive activities, 99 versus 100. But by doing that, by that exercise, and this is actually when you raise your consciousness to such a high level, that he is saying that by doing this, you are actually indirectly responsible. You are the indirect cause of Indra committing that offense. So, and in the 4th chapter, which we are going to do in a few weeks from now, it says that, karma and karmic reactions and all that are very subtle things and very gahana, it says, very difficult to understand. So what is happening, who is doing what, who is not doing what, you read the Shastra. So always one of the things that I've learned from reading Bhagavatam, I mean, I used to make fun of Indra all the time. Indra, I sometimes still do. So, so the reason is that he has got this job, in as much as Maya has got this job. Maya is a great devotee of the Lord. How to understand that? Maya is a great devotee of the Lord, and she puts all into illusion. So these are roles that they are performing in order to educate us and make us fed up of this world. And in Indra's case, he's also demonstrating, so by Prithu's thing, that sometimes our actions will cause others to fall down. And how does it matter 99 or 100? And so that is one point. Second point is to remember that Krishna protects his devotees. He did protect Indra, right? And the third thing, which is very important, that one might just ask that question then, that isn't Prithu Maharaj a devotee of the Lord? After all, we said in the beginning that he's a empowered Sakyavesh avatar of the Lord. So isn't he a devotee? Right? Only devotees will become a Sakyavesh avatar, or, empowered incarnation. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. But in this story, we might just think, so then why did Lord forgive him, stop him from getting his 100 sacrifice, Ashwamedh sacrifice done, right? And the reason for that is, the reason explained here is that this was a karmic or a ritualistic sacrifice that he was performing. It was not being done for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to please the Supreme Personality of God. It was aimed at getting something out of that, right? That is one thing. And the second thing is that after you heard, and then Prithu Maharaj agrees and does not do the 100th sacrifice. He remains at 99. Okay. Now, after we read this story or you hear this story, who is higher in your esteem? Is it Indra or is it Prithu? If you look at it on the surface of it, just go into the deeper details. So one man was trying to do 100 and he was at 99. That was causing a bad effect on somebody else. And so the grandfather comes and said that please don't do it for the sake of that other one. And he said, okay, I won't go I will sacrifice my goal of going till 100. I will stay at 99. So which one?
Prithu.
So which one is better? Prithu, you said?
Prithu.
Prithu, obviously, right? So in that way, Krishna took care of both of them. And he gave what each deserved. Okay, Indra wants to live further. I will prevent you from dying. But then, of course, we'll know Indra, few chapters down in Srimad Bhagavatam, now we'll be fighting with Vritrasura. His life is like that. Indra's life is just showing you that, you are a devotee of the Lord, but you have got this desire. As a devotee of the Lord, you've still got these material desires. That's what happens. You'll become an Indra of some sort. Right? I mean, if you're a CEO of a company, you're some sort of an Indra there. Right? See, so from this, the education, we are getting this knowledge. Right? It is for us to understand that, well, you know what? I don't want to become an Indra. There's danger at every step in Indra's life. There are people out there to attack me. Enemies, surrounded by enemies. Right? So now, in our verse that we are talking about today, there are enemies. And what sort of an enemy? Krishna had described this lust was our enemy. And lust was the enemy. And what was lust doing? It was sitting in various places. And I had said in the previous lectures that when you have an enemy, you have to find out where the enemy is. Then only can you do something about that enemy. Right? And so here we saw that Indra was the enemy of Prithu's son, right? Prithu's son is trying to kill him. And what does Indra do? He becomes invisible. He disappears. Can't see him. So when you have enemies which is invisible, then you can't conquer that enemy. And that's why Krishna told him, Arjuna, that, your enemy is in 3 places. You want to find him? Where he is? Here. He's in the senses, he's in the mind, and he's in the intelligence. Now, how many senses do you have?
13.
Let's count. How many senses do you have?
13.
Okay, let's count the 13. Help her.
Mind, intelligence, ego.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Senses.
Yeah, and then smell, the tongue, nose, different evacuation points.
Right.
Yeah.
So they are basically knowledge acquiring senses, and then they're working senses, right?
5.
So 5 working senses and 5 working senses and 5 knowledge acquiring senses. So there are 10, right? How many enemies do you have? You're 10. You got 10 enemies. And poor soul. And the enemies are being pulled in all the directions by that soul, right? So this is what's going to happen. So now the question is that, and Arjuna has not asked that question, but Krishna has anticipated that question and already answering him that, how do I now overcome this enemy? You have told me this enemy is so bad. And the worst thing about this enemy, and which I said, but this lust, which is an enemy, number one is insatiable. If you try to fulfill your lust or lusty desires, now here's the thing with lust, that it'll make you think that eating an ice cream is going to be good. So you go and buy, the chocolate is very good. Now you eat the chocolate like, oh, this was very bitter in the end. Then the mind will tell you, okay, let's try a mango, right? Mango, it was too sweet for me. Okay, let's try something milder. How about mint? So this way, it's insatiable. And it will always suggest, here's the thing, it will always suggest to you that there is some enjoyment that's going to happen. Okay, you did not enjoy this one. Let me give you another. So there was this King Henry the VIII. How many wives did he have?
7.
Yeah, 7 or 8, right? Yeah, so he had that many
8.
wives.
Okay.
Yeah, and then and so he used to marry. And do we know what happened to his first wife? Do we know what happened to his second wife? What happened to his third wife? They were all guillotined. So he used to go after the women, like her a lot, and when you're done, you cut off their heads like that, right? And so and look at the wives. You're seeing all that, and still you are marrying him, right? So this is our situation in life. We think, and the mind and the lust that will make you think. And there is such a coordination. There's such a coordination in all of them. So what Krishna is saying is that now, let's say when Prithu was trying to catch Indra, Indra would disappear. He became invisible. Okay. Now, of the 3 places where the lust sits, which ones are visible and which ones are invisible?
Senses are
Mind, intelligence, ego, is invisible.
Yeah. Ego he didn't talk about as a
Intelligence is
Senses.
invisible.
intelligence and mind, right? So of the 3 enemies, intelligence and mind are invisible. The visible ones are the senses.
Senses.
That's why he's saying that, how can you control? When Indra used to disappear, Prithu could not do anything. Right? It's only when Atri from the top with some mystical power would say that he's there, do whatever, right? Without that, Prithu's son was not able to do anything. So it's important also for that way. Eye is a very important sense organ. But then eyes can also take you in a different direction. For example, when Vishwamitra was praying, right, and he heard an ankle bell. So that hearing, we say the sense of hearing is very powerful. And indeed, it is very powerful, right? So that was able to break his trance. And so his trance broke by just one roaming sense, tried to catch a name. And now if he opened his eyes, and if he were to see a Shuparnika or a Putana in front of him, his reactions would have been different to what his reactions were when he saw Shakuntala in front of him. And what organ is capturing that information for you?
Eyes.
The eyes. So you see, there is this eye thing. The eyes will catch. The eyes are looking out. The eyes will see. So these senses are there. They're roaming all over the place, knowledge acquiring, giving you things. And after that, his mind was agitated. And when his mind was agitated, Prithu Maharaj's mind was, not Prithu Maharaj, Vishwamitra's mind was agitated. Very difficult to control. If he had kept his eyes shut, then the history would have been different. Right? And so, what here Krishna is saying, that of all these senses, etc., that you have around you, and you have your mind and you have your intelligence, which are sitting place of the lust, the only place where you can control it is if you go and capture your, control your senses. Then the question will be that, okay, so how does all this work? The senses capture some information. right? And they present it to you, some knowledge, they present that knowledge to you. And then the mind will, now form some ideas and some thoughts on that. And then the intelligence is going to discriminate between the two, this or that. Is it good or is it bad, right? And then present that thing to the soul. And the soul can, decide to accept but number one, first the intelligence has to suggest the right thing to the soul. If the intelligence itself has gone brushed, then intelligence will suggest the wrong thing. But if the intelligence, even if the intelligence suggests the right thing, but if the soul desires still to do the wrong thing, soul can still do the wrong thing. But at least, intelligence has proposed the right thing, and most of the cases it will listen like that to the intelligence. So this is how the cycle goes from the senses to the intelligence, so to the mind, to the intelligence, and then to the soul. So what Krishna is just saying is, Adav, in the beginning itself, you stop it. So now the question is, what should I do? Should I pierce my eyes and should I, become blind? Is there an example? Do you know of a story if somebody became blind in order to control the senses?
But Gandhari.
Gandhari became blind, but why did she become blind? What did she become blind to control her senses?
No.
Okay, why did she become blind?
Because her husband husband was blind.
And she? Go ahead, Varshana.
Yeah, she never wanted that I'm higher than my husband. She wanted to give him that status that he's my husband.
Yeah. He's my husband, right? Yeah, so she did that. She didn't want the husband to feel that guilty complex or inferiority complex. Yeah, so she did that, right? So now here's the story of now I'll tell the name and you'll remember.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you the story of Bilva Mangal Thakur, who wrote Krishna Karnamrita. But in the beginning, like he was a merchant, and he used to live with his father, and but he had a wife, a very saintly wife, and then but he had an affair with some prostitute who was living in the next village, and so he used to go there and meet her all the time. And then the day his father died, and he's the only son. He's supposed to do the last rites of his father, and he leaves and goes to meet that woman.
Yeah.
Right. And it was such a bad weather that it was raining, and he goes there, and there was a river separating that village and his village, and so he has to cross the river in such a bad weather, so there are no boatmen there, and he's desperate to go there. See, this is where lust will carry you. He's desperate to go there, and he finds there's a log that is floating, and so he sits on the log and he crosses the river over there. And as he's getting off the log, he realizes that it's not a log, but it was a dead body. So, the working senses, the eyes, which had first seen the prostitute, his eyes that had first seen the prostitute, the same eyes, they stop working because the lust is controlling, the desire is controlling, that I have to go over there, that you don't even see that there is a dead body on which you are sitting over there. So then he goes there, and the prostitute used to live on the second floor of the house, and he has to climb. So then he sees that there is a rope hanging. She says, oh, wow, my girlfriend has put a rope for me to climb, and come up. So he climbs the rope and goes up. And so then she opens the door, and she's very surprised that he has come to meet her. And she says, oh, wow. And then, you came, and then how did you get here? Oh, on my balcony. So he says that, well, I had, didn't you hang a rope over there? So she said, I didn't hang any rope. So they all go there to the balcony. And guess what? It was a snake. A big, long snake. So you have long snakes in India. So he climbs that. So you see the sense of sight gone, completely covered by lust, completely covered. And then he goes there. But this prostitute, and I'm forgetting her name, somebody might remember, because he later on calls her the Vartman Pradaksha Guru. So she says that, the love that you have for me, if you had the same love for Krishna and the desire that you had to meet me, if you had the same intense desire and intensity to go and meet Krishna, your life would have been successful. So these words from her hit him very hard. And so he turns over his leaf, leaves everything, and starts going to live in Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan, he's praying, and then he's also, begging from place to place. And so one day, he's there on his prowl, and he sees a beautiful woman. His eyes see a beautiful woman, and he follows her. And then, so he's falling, so the wife gets, scared. The lady gets scared. And so as soon as he reaches home, she tells her husband that, there's this man, he's following me. I don't know what he wants. So look at those days. The man then says, okay, let us find out what does this man want. So they call him inside and he says, what do you want? And look at this Bilva Mangal, shameless. He says, I want your wife. And so the husband then turns to the wife and says, well, you know what? He's our guest. You should go. And when Bilva Mangal Thakur hears this conversation, then what he does is he takes a pin. Now, don't try that in your homes. He takes a pin from that lady's hair and then he pokes his two eyes. And he says, it's because of these two eyes that I am in this dire situation in life. It is his eyes that do all these things to me. So I'm going to, pierce my eyes and become blind. It was a very strong way of nipping it in the bud. When there are no eyes and I don't see anything, then, I'll have no problems in life at all. Now, we don't recommend such a drastic situation for those watching us on Facebook as well as here on Zoom. So then what do I do? I have got senses. What do I do? I've been landed with senses. Not one enemy, 10. 5 working senses, 5 knowledge acquiring senses. They are my enemies. Right? 10. How do I fight my poor soul? So Krishna is saying that and Prabhupada explains that by following the 4 regulative principles of devotional service. He's saying why? Because this lust is a perverted reflection of your love for Krishna. So we all have love for Krishna. It's just got perverted and it's manifesting itself as lust, which is to desire to enjoy this material world in one way, shape, or the form. Mm-hmm. And so he's saying that, curb it right in the beginning. And because the senses cannot lie idle. Senses cannot lie idle. But when you engage them in the service of the Lord, for example, let us see. We are all sitting here and listening to Bhagavad-gita. We're discussing Bhagavad-gita. Do you think it is service to the Lord?
Yes.
Yes, right? Okay, now let's see what are the senses we are engaging in the service of the Lord.
Ears.
Ears, okay.
And
eyes, ears,
eyes.
intelligence,
Okay.
Mind.
Okay. Hands. Okay.
Tongue, Mataji.
Tongue.
Because
right.
we are glorifying God here.
Right.
Krishna.
And then feet. Right.
Yes.
So actually, let's expand this horizon a little bit more. When you go to the temple, right? Or go any place. I mean, you must have walked at least in your home to come to this room. I saw Simi Mataji was adjusting her sitting place there. So she was she was standing, she was walking. Sukomal Radhe Mataji walked from here to there, adjust something. We do, right? We do engage the senses. And then, of course, when you go to the temple, then there is prasadam after the lecture.
Eating.
That is the reason 99% come to the temple. That's one of the reasons I go to the temple, big one. I don't have to cook prasadam today. Eat it in the temple.
Nowadays, there is no prasada either.
No prasadam there? Yeah, I heard a lot of people who say, yeah.
They stopped it now.
Yeah. So Krishna is saying that you curb it in the middle. When you curb it in the middle, in the beginning itself, have control of the senses, because those are the only things that you can see. And what you can see is what you can control. Because Arjuna says, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balvadranam tasyaham nigraham manye vayur eva sadushkavam. So it is very difficult to control the mind. And how difficult it is, as if you're trying to control the air. Right? Mm-hmm. You can't control the air too much. Right? And so you have to control, starting with the intelligence, starting with the senses, and then you control the mind, and you then control the intelligence. Like that, right? But you have to start in the beginning with the heart thing, that is the senses there. And then the mind. Mind is very difficult. Mind is like, mind is like a river. Constantly, water is flowing. And in the second chapter there, apuryamanam machila pratishtam, right? So Krishna says that in a very, very nice verse. And I think what verse it is, I don't remember, but just later in the chapter. Let me see if I can bring it up here. Chapter 2, and then Yeah, much later, 70, I think. Yeah, there you go. I found it. Let me share this verse with you. Here and here and here. So apuryamanam machila pratishtham samudramapaha pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve na shanti mapnoti na kami. What does it mean? A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. Because lust is what? It's like a powerful fire. And let me just tell you one word that Krishna had used few verses ago, I think 36 or 37, he used that word. And let's see. Yeah, here. He's saying Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, when he's asking what makes me do that, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transform into wrath when your desire is not fulfilled, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. All devouring. You keep on like a fire, you put some ghee, gone. Put some more ghee, gone. You're thinking fire is going to be satisfied by pouring ghee. It's never going to be satisfied. It's continuing to blaze. So similarly, our lusty desires are going to continue to blaze if you try to fulfill those desires. Like that, right? So instead of doing that, you engage those desires, engage those activities into something different. So your tongue has to engage. Your tongue has to taste something. Your tongue has to eat something. Like that, right? So you have to constantly engage your senses, but engage them in the service of Krishna. And when you engage them in the service of Krishna, these same senses will become your friends. This all-powerful, all-devouring, sinful enemy of the world will not devour you. And it won't impel you to commit the sins in order to fulfill our lusty desires. Okay? You will live a simple life. You got one chapati only, that's fine. Some other day you went to the temple, there was a party, you got 6 puris, that is fine. Next day there's only khichdi, that is fine. Whatever I have, I'm just giving, it is Krishna Prasadam, for me everything is tasty. One day the food is burned in the temple, I will eat it. Why? Because we gave that to Krishna to eat, he ate it. How come we are not able to eat it? Like that, right? So that's why he's saying, Adau, in the beginning itself, you have to curb the senses. Okay. So I'll stop here now and take a few reflections in the end. Any questions that you have? And also welcome Sonia Mataji and Khyati Mataji and Astha Mataji who joined us today.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam Mataji. I wanted to know, a karmic reaction means, just now we have discussed that the more important senses are eyes and ears. So, Mataji, if we meet some people other than devotee and like they're talking something else in the material world or material objects or some other thing other than Krishna, but we are not liking it, and then we stop interacting with them. So what kind of karmic reaction I'm accumulating?
None. And we will read that. We will read that in 4th chapter when we are talking more about karmic reactions there. Because this is, well, you asked the best perfect question of the day. Because it is telling you the essence of the Bhagavad-gita. Arjuna in the 1st chapter is constantly saying, Papameva shrayed asman, hatvatan yat atinan. Right? He's saying, definitely we will incur sinful activities if they kill us, if we kill these our relatives. He says that in the 1st chapter, and anybody will say, yeah, what do you mean? Killing your maternal uncle, Mamaji Kumar diya? No, you don't do that. Right? So and in 1st chapter, we all are supporting Arjuna. It makes sense what he's saying, right? But then as we go to the Bhagavad-gita, Krishna says in the middle that when he's showing his universal form, he's saying, I've already killed them. Nimitta matra bhava savyasachin, you just be an instrument. I want them killed. Why? Because these are the sinful people. They should be removed from this earth. All the Kauravas, sinful, and their friends, they are also sinful. So they should be removed from this earth. So now you fight and you will not incur sin. Because why? Because the results are dedicated to Krishna. So you are abstaining from people who are not talking, Krishna conscious talks, right? Or topics, discussing those topics. So you have done it not for your own gratification. You have done it for Krishna. So you don't get any karmic reaction from abandoning them, right?
Yes, Mataji, I was very confused because that may create the heart or something. So if they are
actually, and that's also a good question. So there are layers, or there are levels in which we operate. So in the beginning, what do they say to a small kid when we teach them how to pray? Close your eyes. To a kid, we say that, right? Close your eyes. Why? Because eyes will see something and they will wander here and there, right? Roaming. So close your eyes. When you become big, you don't have to close the eyes. We say, no, the deity is in front of you. Keep your eyes open. You're praying to the deity. Like that. So similarly, what happens is as we progress in our devotional service, then there are stages at which, and Krishna says that in the beginning of this 3rd chapter also, there are stages in which we will progress to the extent that, we reach a stage when we do something or we don't do something, it doesn't matter, because you are at a stage where you realize that this doing and not doing has got to do with the gross body, which is material, and I'm the soul. So it doesn't matter to me whether I do this or not. That you reach that level of, but those people still continue to do whatever they are supposed to do, right? And why do they do that?
they are not in the spiritual path.
No, they are already self-realized. Why do they seem to be doing see, if you are self-realized, you realize you are not the body, or you are the soul. Is there a need for you to take a shower? No, right?
No.
But they will still take a shower. Yeah, but so Khyati Mataji, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Mataji. I was going to say that because common people observe them and follow them, right?
Yeah,
so just to give an example.
Exactly right. So they will do that, but they are at that level of consciousness. So similarly, like we tell them, we will say that, stay away from drinking, don't drink. Right? A person who's a drunkard will, okay, fine, understands it and wants to give up drinking. And so he's now trying to control that urge and not drink, and the mind is presenting thoughts and he's controlling it. But one day, if a bottle comes in front of it, what happens? He's impelled, right? Because the desire has still not gone out of it, right? And there's a very interesting thing I heard in one of the lectures, and I wanted to share that with you. And I'll have to bring up a blank document here and put some things here first. So this drunkard man has got in the habit of gulping how many bottles? Like 6 bottles of wine. I don't know what makes you drunkard. I'm not an expert in that. But habit is what? You keep on doing the same thing again and again, right? And you have to do it. So let's look at this. And how do I share my screen? I don't know. Okay, I'm already sharing my screen with you. Okay. So you see this word habit?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now you're trying to get rid of the habit. Okay. So I remove the H. Okay. What remains?
A bit.
A bit.
A bit.
A bit.
A bit.
A
Little bit.
right? And then you remove this.
Bit.
And when you remove this,
It.
right? So it is difficult to give up the habits. It's very difficult to give the habits, right? So that is why to a person who's trying to give up drinking, we will tell him, hey, don't even go to the bar. Why? Because your consciousness is not purified to that level that you can go into the bar and hold yourself. You will go and get attacked and go there, right? So as we progress in devotional service, the devotees will be told, don't go, no alcohol, right? No nothing, no this, no that, right? And then somebody might say, oh, but what about I'm taking homeopathic medicine and they are dipped in alcohol, but you're not going to get intoxicated by homeopathic pills like that, right? So, but in the beginning, we'll say, yes, don't take it. Because we want you to complete your practicing young, Kanishta, junior, like that, right? But Vaisheshika Babu, he goes to bars to distribute books. He'll sit down, he'll stop. Like if somebody sees him entering the bar, what will they think? Right? So you have to be at a certain high level to be able to interact constantly with so-called non-devotees without being affected by them. Without being affected by that. So then in the beginning, we'll say, yes, shun. And you're doing it in favor of Krishna, you shun. And but later on, after some time, you would have reached at that higher level of consciousness that even when they are doing all those kinds of talks, you will just, be there. Just be there and try to chant the Hare Krishna mantra in your head so that at least you get some vibrations there. But in the beginning, we are not strong. So what's going to happen is we will get carried away by their conversation. So we say, okay, don't go there. So that's that gradual.
Guru Maharaj Ji had gone to distribute books in the bar.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He goes there. Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji.
But I liked is one of his this thing. He was giving a book to a person who was smoking.
Yeah.
That was really good. And he asked for the cigarettes. And that person wants to give only one. No, I can take the full box.
Full pack. Yeah.
Full pack. And then he says, no, I have a lighter. Then they give the lighter. He lights the lamp at the deities, tells him. That was really good. So I got that.
Right. Yep. There you go.
Even in this December marathon, Shraddha Mataji, a lot of devotees went to so many places that are meat eating and bars, but the owners happily took the books. So that is what we are concerned with, right?
Yep.
Not what they are doing
Yeah.
or eating or drinking.
Yes. Yes, but you never know. That is what this whole verse and these verses are saying, right? That even one of the roaming senses, right? One of the roaming senses. Let's go back to chapter 2. Very, very important. Chapter 2, you'll appreciate more. That's why it says contents of the Gita summarized. Why? Because after you read the various chapters of Bhagavad-gita, you come back again to see, oh, it was already said in chapter 2. Oh, Krishna already said that in chapter 2. Like that, right? So, as a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses carries away a man's intelligence. Even one. So the padam, that's why who's that? Prahlad says padam yad vipadam natesham, that every step that there is danger, at every step. Like that. Okay, so should we call it a day on this call today? We had a fantastic turnout today. Very happy to see you all.
Thank you very much, Mataji.
All right. Be care and control your senses. And that's why we have the regulative principles, right? 4 regulative principles. And once we follow these 4 regulative principles, they actually become the regulative principles of freedom. And the freedom is not, in the beginning, we are asking for freedom. When we say, I want to have the freedom to do everything that I want. I want to have freedom to eat as many ice creams as I want. Well, actually, you might get that freedom from your parents to do that, but you're actually a slave of the ice cream. Right? And these regulative principles, we are saying like, no, okay, let's do that. Every Ekadashi, you don't eat ice cream. Every Sunday, you don't eat ice cream. Or 2 days a week, you don't eat ice cream. So regulating slowly, we are practicing it. Right? Till a certain point that, there could be 600 cups of ice cream around you and you're not tempted. So now you are in freedom from the clutches of ice cream. So these regulative principles are actually to give you freedom from otherwise it is like, what is this? It's this complete binding. Don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that. What are you doing? Well, we are helping you to be liberated.
Yes.
From the clutches of Maya. Like that. So that is what this verse is saying. In the beginning itself, you nip it in the bud. Adao. Right? And that is what the strategy should be, right? Even for the enemies, that's what you do. In the beginning itself, you nip it. Right? If somebody knows somebody is known to borrow money from others and they never return that money. You know about them, right? And then one day they come and tell you that, Uncle Sanjay is dead. I need some money for his funeral. And of course, Uncle Sanjay has died like 600 times in his lifetime already. And then, so what do? First time itself, you won't give the money. Because if you give some money, he's going to come back to you again. Ask for more, ask for more, ask for more. Insatiable. Senses are like that. Okay? And the beauty of this is that when you hear Krishna Katha, Karna Krodha Kadambani Vitaye, from the holes in your ear, when they enter into the heart, there they will cleanse the mirror of your heart. Cheto Darpana Marjana. So that is the remedy, that is the cure. No popping pills, no going to the psychiatrist's couch, none of that. No surgeries are going to help you cleanse your mind. It's only Krishna Katha. Shunmatam swakatha Krishna punya shravana kirtana hidyantasto hi abhadrani vidhunoti suhitsatam. Like a friend, Krishna is going to cleanse all the dirt from the mirror of your mind. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripasindhubhya patitana
Pavitanam Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.
Thank you for the
Hare
fantastic class,
Krishna.
Shraddha Mataji.
You are welcome, my dear. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
Now for tomorrow's
Thank you,
class,
Mataji.
6:30 a.m. Yeah,
Thank
for
you.
tomorrow's class, 6:30 a.m. I just wanted to make an announcement that I do intend to make the class, but tomorrow is our offering for the marathon. So my corporate books team, I just left my accounting to come and give this class. I'm going to go back there again. Archana, I might call on you in the night. You are one of my
Sure,
accountants.
Mataji.
And
No problem.
so we'll be churning, usually we churn figures. Sometimes it becomes a whole night calculations and things like that, because it's Krishna's Lakshmi, we have to be careful and books like that. So if I don't start the call within 6:35, that means I have just, just gone to sleep or something like that. But I'll try my best to be there. Yeah, I intend to be there. I'm planning to be there, Krishna willing. But just wanted you all to know that. Okay?
Okay, Mataji.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
All right.
Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hari Bol.